Internet, welcome to THARME, the show on the internet that only knows 3 children. I am so sorry you had to hear that. Anyway, I assume if you're here, you know about Snapcube's latest nugget of comedy gold, Sonic Destruction, an AI-generated script for a Sonic the Hedgehog fan film, read by the cast of their famous fan dubs. Well, 2 scripts now, since the second episode of the series came out New Year's Day 2022. And this thing is wild, man. Honestly, if you are watching this without having seen them, go watch them before seeing this. Even if you don't care about spoilers and just want to know how things go down in them, go watch the original videos anyway. I cannot do them justice. So, for those of us who have seen them,
which should be all of us by now,
you know that by the end of the second episode, things have gotten very confusing. It's to the point where not even the AI knows what's going on anymore, given that it has Shadow say something to Daedalus, when Shadow technically isn't even in the scene anymore since they're the same guy. Anyways, I was scrolling through Twitter looking for some early fan art of the episode, when I came across someone who reminded me of something that might be able to help things make a little more sense. The fact that in Sonic Destruction, there are not 1, but 2 shadows. And that gave me an idea. What if I tried to make sense of this mess? I mean, how hard could it be? Very. It was very hard. I started off with a number of questions that needed answering. First, how the fuck is Silver also Shadow? Second, basically everything about Daedalus. Where did he come from? Why was he taking action to save Station Square despite his hatred for Mayor King? Why did he erase Sonic's memory and turn him into a human? Most of the questions here revolve around him, honestly. Third, what in God's name was going on in Silver's backstory? Was he Shadow the whole time, despite switching from third to first person? Why are Gerald and Elise in the royal family of a village purported to be a haven for hedgehogs? Why the fuck does a village have a royal family in the first place? Never really answered those 2, honestly, but it still bears asking. Fourth, what was with the scaly robots in that one scene? And fifth, what was the link between Project Shadow, the Daedalus Initiative, and Gerald's experiments with the Horde? I decided to start by trying to make a rough timeline of events. Most of this is basically the same as what's shown in the series, with the exception of events that explicitly take place in the past. Namely, the Harbinger's worship of Dark Gaia, Project Shadow and the birth of Shadow the Hedgehog, the Daedalus Initiative, the attack on Soliana, and the sudden disappearance of almost everything relating to the Daedalus Initiative, with the exception of Silver and Shadow the Hedgehog for PlayStation 2. I can't believe this is actually a piece of crucial evidence for anything. The other thing I placed before the recent present of the series was Gerald and Eggman's conversation in the gunhold. My reasoning for this is the fact that if the conversation occurred in the time it does in the script, that 3 months that the Ultimate Life Form would have taken to be ready would have apparently happened in the space of an afternoon. Unless the gunhold is hidden somewhere in the hyperbolic sodding time chamber, that seems like a problem. It also, funnily enough, gives Shadow time to steal Eggman's doctor's research. I'm gonna assume for this theory that Eggman's doctor here is actually Gerald. The first question I decided to answer was this. If Shadow was born in Soliana, like Silver's backstory states, why did he destroy it like Elise says he did? Did he just go full Itachi on the place? Before I got to that, I decided to rule out the idea of using the real-world game Shadow the Hedgehog to come to any conclusions. Reason being, the game seems to be completely different here than in the real world, considering that the PS2 is a cube, and it seems to be played in some form of full dive VR? At the very least, it's different enough that I can't draw any conclusions from it. After I assembled my timeline, I noticed something odd. In the backstories, in episode 1 and in episode 2, there's always two shadows. When it comes to the past, we have a shadow that was created by the government in Project Shadow, but was deemed a failure, and put to work as a double agent. And there was the shadow that lived in Soliana. In episode 2, there was the shadow that turned out to be Daedalus, and the real shadow who is apparently dead. And in episode 1, two shadows actually meet on screen. The one with the black jacket and gauntlets, and the one with green eyes. I concluded that there must be two shadows in the story, but I just need to figure out which shadow from each setting matches up with which. I figured focusing on a different thread in this jumbled heap of metaphorical yarn could help. Switching over to Sonic's memory issues, I wondered why Daedalus would bother erasing all of Sonic's memories between two arbitrary points in time, except for the identity of the one who did it. That's when I heard this.
He didn't know! I used my power over the mind to make him think I was dead. Why?
No one said you were dead.
Setting aside AI Dungeon lying to itself and us, Daedalus admits himself that he has the power of mind control. He demonstrates it too, forcing a soldier in the Chaotix building, one presumably loyal to Vector and Charmy, or Charlemagne, I guess, to attack and knock out Charmy. Funnily enough, the span of time Sonic says is blank for him is between his conversation with Shadow in the hotel and waking up as Sonic the Human, a span of time in which he acted very strange, saying things he wouldn't normally say,
Come on, you fucker.
offering to help Eggman, his ominous statements about real victory, and even threatening to destroy the world. Even Eggman notices the difference.
That's not why I'm here. I came to offer you a chance at real victory.
Really? It seems to me that you're the one who's lost. You've lost your way, Sonic.
Wait a minute. When did Sonic's memory loss start? Between his conversation with Shadow in the hotel and waking up as Sonic the Human. His conversation with Shadow. It seems my strategy of bouncing from idea to idea is already paying off. Sonic's memory stops immediately after talking to one of the shadows. Additionally, Daedalus' mind control is only definitively shown working at short range, like on the soldier mentioned previously. All of this together means I can say with a good degree of certainty that the shadow with gauntlets from episode 1, the one that fights against Elise and the weird dragon thing, is Daedalus. For the sake of ease, we'll call this one Daedalus Shadow from now on, and the other shadow in episode 1 we'll call Green-Eyed Shadow. Now, sadly, I had even more questions. If Daedalus Shadow is the one that fought against Elise and the dragon, and he mind-controlled Sonic to go and take on the Ultimate Life Form, why didn't he and Sonic just go and attack Mayor King directly? They were both in Station Square the entire time, and it probably would have been easier with Sonic as a hedgehog instead. I figured it must be about another grudge of Daedalus's. We know he stole some of Gerald's research at some point, so we can assume he'd know from that what the Ultimate Life Form was and where it'd be, but why did he go after it? I thought I'd double down on looking at different questions, and decided to try and figure out Silver's convoluted, rambling story. I got the essential elements of what happened written down, with all of Silver's circular storytelling and tangents to nowhere cut out. What I figured out was this. Shadow was once a normal hedgehog living in Soliana. Silver lived there too, as prince of the village, and an only child. His father was King Gerald, and there was also a princess, Elise, who was presumably a royal consort. One day, a Friday specifically, Silver was on a school trip to the offshore paradise kingdom of Epirus. He got homesick and tried to come back on his hoverboard while no one was looking. Unfortunately, as he was returning, an attack on the kingdom was occurring, perpetrated by Dr. Eggman. Also, a meteor containing the King and Queen of Epirus fell from the sky that day. I honestly don't get the relevance of that since they never got mentioned again. Later on in the story, it's revealed by Gerald that it was the government who were actually at fault for the attack, not Eggman. They simply blamed Eggman for it and put on a sham trial. Elise, however, accused Daedalus Shadow of doing it. That's when I realised. Since Daedalus Shadow and Green-Eyed Shadow look mostly similar, they'd be pretty easy to mistake. The Double Agent Shadow was created before the start of the Daedalus Initiative. Double Agent Shadow was sent to destroy Soliana and kidnap hedgehogs for the Daedalus Initiative. Why take them from Soliana rather than anywhere else? Soliana is, as Silver puts it, rich with magic. If you're gonna take hedgehogs for a super soldier programmer from anywhere, may as well go with the place that's full of magical power, and that's gonna be easy to clean up evidence from. With that, everything began to open up. Now that I had figured out that the shadow from Soliana was Daedalus Shadow, and that the double agent shadow made by the government was the Green-Eyed Shadow, I had some good guesses for several other things. How did Silver think that Eggman performed the attack on Soliana? The government probably meddled with his memory of the incident. I doubt they'd want their super soldiers, all obtained from the same tragedy, to realise that they're the ones who carried out that tragedy in the first place. How then did Daedalus know about the Daedalus Initiative in the first place, to get his name? He stole Gerald's research. Gerald himself says he's been doing research and making theories about Project Shadow and the Daedalus Initiative, so Daedalus Shadow could easily have stolen that research specifically. Which brought me back around to my previous question. Why send Sonic after the Ultimate Life Form? I thought back to Daedalus Shadow's fight against Elise and realised that AI Dungeon repeatedly referred to her dragon thing as the Beast. I then noticed that the Horde, Gerald's other experiments placed around the Ultimate Life Form, were referred to as specimens of the Beast. Since both are, at least in part, reptilian, and the dragon seems to be particularly angered or hurt by the Ultimate Life Form being ejected from their airlock, I think we can safely assume that the dragon is the Beast. It's the other potential source of DNA in the Horde and the Ultimate Life Form that I'm interested in, though. We know Gerald is working with the government, specifically as the head of an anti-rebel task force. It's probably this that allowed him to gain access to classified files, such as those for Project Shadow. A little detail about Green-Eyed Shadow, the end result of the project, is that he is entirely black, with no mention of any red stripes, just like the Horde and the Ultimate Life Form. It is my belief, therefore, that the Horde and the Ultimate Life Form are the genetic combination of Green-Eyed Shadow and the Beast. Since Daedalus now knew about Project Shadow, Green-Eyed Shadow, and Gerald's continuation of the project, I believe he sent Sonic after the Ultimate Life Form to try and fully end Project Shadow, as well as any further work from his research. That's probably also why he got so aggressive after finding out about the G-Type, which is presumably more of Gerald's research spanning off from Project Shadow, as well as why he went to face down the Beast alone. As for why he turned Sonic into a human, and why he had his eyes turn reptilian during the beatdown, I believe it was to parallel Project Shadow and the Ultimate Life Form, almost to parody it. We know Daedalus can alter other people's appearances. I mean, he did turn Sonic into a human. I see no reason why he can't make minor changes on the fly. How, though, you may be asking, did Sonic start being able to remember things? Sonic seems, even while under the influence of Daedalus, to be flip-flopping back and forth between the destructive and chaotic tendencies Daedalus is causing, and his usual heroic self. He seems to be losing in the scene in Eggman's control room, considering he tries challenging the Ultimate Life Form to a race, then immediately goads it into a full-on fight. In episode 2, however, he says,
I'm sorry. I tried so hard to contain it.
Before he attacks Mayor King. From that point forward, Sonic makes it clear he still feels the urges that Daedalus is causing.
I need to know how this happened. What happened to the city? Why I feel almost joyful when I look at the state it's in. I need to know.
But he obviously has them, at least mostly, under control. Who knows, maybe his new fashion sense is Daedalus' fault as well. I think that when Sonic had suppressed Daedalus' control, he also gained back his consciousness and ability to retain new information. Next, how come Silver believes that he's Shadow the Hedgehog? This is probably a stretch, but I believe that there may be some sort of psychic link between Daedalus and Silver, created during their time in the Daedalus Initiative. My main, and really only, piece of evidence for this is the big funny Among Us line. Reason being, after this line, Sonic the Human stepped out of the shadows and beat Mayor King nearly to death. Silver could only have known Sonic the Human even existed if he had some degree of link between himself and Daedalus. Again, it's a bit of a stretch, but it could explain his muddled backstory. Then I answered a pretty easy question from a certain point of view. The question of the robots with the scales. The key to this one is the phrasing AI Dungeon uses. The robots are, and I quote, covered in scales. What if, instead of being scaly like one might expect, they are instead covered in loose scales, ones not attached to them? Perhaps while Daedalus was facing down with the beast, the Horde was also running around terrorizing the city. It was established earlier that Eggman had a massive army of robots, and through the story he goes from his loud, villainous self from the game series to depressed and dejected, and then he's on the hero's side consistently. I believe that, noticing the damage the Horde were doing, Eggman had a change of heart and sent in his robot army. The robots won, inadvertently covering themselves in the scales of the Horde. After that, the fires of Station Square simply burned them out, leaving only their charred outer shells behind. One of a couple of brief, simpler things I concluded was that the promise that Green-Eyed Shadow mentioned failing is the same promise that Sonic broke to Elise. Mainly this spans from the fact that it's the only promise mentioned at this point. Additionally, if they made a promise to Elise and Green-Eyed Shadow believes that Elise is dead, then that would explain Green-Eyed Shadow's reaction. But Alex, I hear none of you asking because this is a pre-recorded video, if he believes Elise is dead, how did he make a promise to her? Simple. It's the fake Elise. We know Eggman has made a fake Elise, and Elise's promise seems designed to keep Sonic from interfering with Eggman's attack. So I believe that, for at least a portion of time that Green-Eyed Shadow was working with the Freedom Fighters, there was a fake Elise. I believe that the deranged Elise, the one that accused Daedalus Shadow of the attack on Soliana, is the real Elise, while the one that was with Daedalus Shadow and Silver in their first scene, the one that Sonic and Green-Eyed Shadow made their promise to, is the fake Elise made by Eggman. Finally, there's the timeline shenanigans. During the first meeting with Mayor King, Knuckles states,
steps forward. Because someone pulled at the wrong thread and unraveled our timeline. There was once a hero who saved the city, but now he's gone.
The question is, who is it? My belief is that it's Green-Eyed Shadow, and the one who pulled the thread is probably Daedalus Shadow. By this point, Daedalus knows about Project Shadow, and he's already moving to take out Station Square, Mayor King, the Ultimate Lifeform, and the Beast. It only makes sense for him to remove the good guy who could be able to turn the tide and save more people, who also happens to be the product of the project he is also trying to destroy. Let's run through all of that again, but in a bit more of an organised fashion. About a decade before the start of Episode 1, the government starts up Project Shadow. The goal of the project is unclear, but the final product is supposed to be able to transform into a human. The end result sadly cannot. They name it Shadow the Hedgehog, but we'll call him Green-Eyed Shadow, since his eyes are in fact green. Sometime later, the government uses Green-Eyed Shadow to commit an attack on the magical village of Soliana with the goal of kidnapping hedgehogs to use in their new super soldier program, the Daedalus Initiative. During the attack, King Gerald and Princess Elise escape. Two of the captured hedgehogs are Silver, the prince, and Shadow, an average hedgehog, but we'll call Daedalus Shadow. After this, Green-Eyed Shadow is sent in as a double agent among the Freedom fighters, Sonic's team. Time passes and Daedalus, Shadow and Silver become friends. Some members of the Daedalus Initiative research team develop a game based on the exploits of Daedalus Shadow, the game they called Shadow the Hedgehog and released for PlayStation 2. At some point after this, all information on the Daedalus Initiative, as well as Daedalus Shadow, would disappear without a trace, leaving Silver the only survivor known to the government. Years later, Gerald, now working for the government, has taken the research from Project Shadow and attempting to use it to create the ultimate lifeform. In the process, he creates the Horde. During this time, Gerald learns the truth about what happens to Soliana. Sometime after, Eggman tries to start using Gerald's creations in his plans, and Daedalus Shadow steals Gerald's research, also learning about the Daedalus Initiative, the other Shadow, and the fate of Soliana. At the same time, Eggman produces a fake Princess Elise, presumably to try and manipulate Green-Eyed Shadow. One night, the fake Elise makes Sonic and Green-Eyed Shadow promise not to leave their hotel room. Despite making this promise, the two go to interfere with Eggman's attack. During the fight, the two somehow leave enough collateral damage to leave a massive fuck-off hole in the ground. Maybe they used the Chaos Emeralds and went super, doesn't matter. Sonic then tried to go back to bed, but was woken up by the fake Elise, who screams at him for breaking his promise. Later that day, the real Elise resurfaces, deranged. She goes about planning abject rampant destruction. While this happens, Daedalus begins his plans for destruction as well. These plans begin by mind-controlling Sonic and having him go attack the ultimate life form, while he goes to attack the Beast. During the fight, Sonic dies, though in his final moments he manages to launch the ultimate life form out of an airlock, incidentally dropping him directly onto the head of the Beast, killing both. Around that battle, after a change of heart, Eggman sends his vast robot army into the city to fight off the Horde. The robots win, but the fire of the city burns out their internals, leaving their outer shells covered in the scales of their semi-reptilian enemies. Eggman then joins the freedom fighters. Daedalus then resurrects Sonic as a human to parody the failure of Project Shadow. He then has him go to the office of Mayor Jason King to beat the ever-loving shit out of him. Sonic then fights back Daedalus' control, though he still feels the drive to do his will. From there, there's not much that needs explaining, other than the fact that my lungs are fucking empty. That's about all the questions I could answer about this tangled mess. No, I probably will not bother trying to patch further holes in this theory, because honestly, this alone made me feel like a conspiracy theorist. This was a really, really stupid video to make, but good God do I look forward to episode 3. But that's just a THARME. A GARME THARME. Join us next time to watch me figure out how many fucking cheeses Warrior's worth. I don't know. Thank you for watching. Like I said, this video was insane to make, but it was pretty fun too. I'd also like to thank Twitter user Private Mumbles for letting me use his art of Daedalus in this video. Link in the description. If you like this video, leave a like. If you really like this video and would want to see more like it, or at least more stuff with me in it, hit that subscribe button. We upload random stuff like this every Thursday or Friday, depending on your time zone, and we upload our Reading Homestuck series every Monday or Tuesday, again, depending on your time zone. If you want even more of our content, follow me on Twitter, where you can watch me go down rabbit holes like this, or possibly just say random shit while sleep-deprived and bored. You can also follow my friends Arthur and George on Twitch, or on Twitter in George's case. They both appear in most of the other content on this channel, and they stream stuff occasionally. Sometimes I'm in it too. Either way, I'll see you in the next video. Later!